She opened the door in the middle of a blizzard and found a half-dead wolf pup, bleeding, broken, and somehow knocking with its own paw. Days later, 3 full-grown wolves appeared at her cabin and stared straight into her soul. They didn't growl. They bowed. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The cabin was silent again, save for the ticking of the wall clock and the low moan of the wind curling around the eaves like a living thing. Emily stood in the dim kitchen light, cradling the pup in her arms as if it were made of glass. Its fur was matted with half-frozen blood, and beneath the grime and the fear, she could feel its ribs through its thin skin. Starvation, exhaustion, trauma. Every alarm in her veterinary-trained brain lit up at once. She laid the pup gently on a folded towel atop her kitchen table, hands moving with practiced urgency, muscle memory born of years tending to injured foxes, moose calves, even the occasional bear cub. But this was different. This one had come to her. Her own pulse thundered in her ears as she inspected the mangled paw. A clean break, compound, jagged bone just beneath the skin. But what truly chilled her was the smear on the doorframe, a paw print smeared across the wood at shoulder height. It wasn't a scratch or a scuff. It was intentional, deliberate. A knock. Her breath caught in her throat. No animal should be able to do that. Not like that. The pup whimpered again, pulling her back into the moment. She pulled out her emergency kit, splints, gauze, antiseptic, a tiny syringe of painkillers. The animal didn't resist, didn't growl, didn't try to bite. It only stared at her, eyes barely open, filled with a haunting intelligence she didn't want to acknowledge. There was a depth there, something just beyond her comprehension, like staring into the eyes of something that had chosen her. She whispered softly, more to herself than to it. "Where did you come from?" Outside, the storm wailed louder, lashing snow against the windows with frantic fingers. Emily felt the weight of something shift in the air, something unseen but undeniable, a tension in the bones of the cabin itself, as if the forest was watching, holding its breath. She moved the pup to a laundry basket lined with fleece and placed it near the fireplace, stoking the embers until a warm glow lit the room. The pup settled, trembling less, its breathing slow and shallow. Emily sat beside it on the floor, knees drawn to her chest, unable to look away. She didn't sleep, not because of fear, but because part of her already knew. The knock hadn't been an accident. And whatever had sent this pup to her door wasn't finished. The air was razor-sharp with cold, but Emily barely felt it. Snowflakes drifted in slow spirals from the overcast sky, catching on her lashes and jacket as she knelt beside the frozen body. The wolf's fur, once likely thick and radiant, was now stiff with ice, blood soaking deep into the snow beneath her. The entry wound was small, almost surgical. Clean shot, center mass. A hunter's bullet, she thought bitterly, probably from miles off. No reason, no mercy. Ash's mother. Emily reached out, gloved fingers trembling, and brushed snow away from the animal's face. Her eyes had already gone glassy, reflecting a pale sliver of the gray sky. The guilt hit like a wave, not for the death, but for the helplessness, for the fact that Ash had somehow dragged his broken body through the storm, past predators and frost, and found her. And now this, a grave buried in the woods. No answers, just grief hanging in the trees. Then, snap. The sound was soft, almost imperceptible, but it cut through the silence like a warning bell. She turned slowly, the forest shifting into sudden focus. Every tree branch, every shadow, every shape among the snow seemed to lean in, watching. And then she saw them. 3 wolves, standing still at the tree line like sentinels carved from stone. Not hiding, not stalking, present. Each was enormous, thick-coated against the cold, and perfectly still, save for the gentle rising and falling of their breath. The one in front, taller than the others, with fur like storm clouds and eyes like molten gold, stared straight into her. Emily didn't move. She knew what she was supposed to do: make herself look big, back away slowly, don't show weakness. But her instincts, so honed in classrooms and triage tents, told her something else. These wolves weren't here to attack. They weren't threatening. They were bearing witness. To her. To Ash. To the body in the snow. "I'm taking care of him," she said, the words escaping her mouth before she could think. Her voice cracked. "I swear to you." The lead wolf tilted its head slightly, as if considering the weight of her words. Then, with a grace that defied its bulk, it stepped forward once, one heavy paw pressing deep into the snow, then turned, silent, measured. The others followed. Within seconds the forest was empty again. Emily stood rooted in place, the cold finally beginning to bite at her skin. Not fear, awe, reverence. The kind of feeling ancient people must have felt when the world still had rules whispered in fur and fang and snow. They had come to see her, to see if she was worthy of what had been left behind. The morning Emily chose to say goodbye was impossibly still. Not quiet, still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. A faint sun filtered through the trees, casting long silver shadows on the snow-crusted earth. The sky was pearl gray, clouded but not heavy, and the air smelled of pine, frost, and something bittersweet. She'd packed nothing. No collar, no tags, just a silent promise to herself that she wouldn't beg him to stay. Ash trotted beside her, tail low, ears alert. No limp now. The jagged pain that had once twisted his steps was long gone. He moved with the quiet poise of his kind, low to the ground, but proud. His coat had thickened into a mottled charcoal and ash gray, flecked with pale hints of silver around his ears. Wildness had returned to him, not just in strength, but in spirit. They reached the ridge where the forest deepened, the place where the snow stopped looking domestic and began to look like wilderness. Emily crouched beside him. Her gloved hand stroked the bridge of his snout, slow and steady. "You were never mine," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "But you saved me anyway." Ash licked her cheek once, warm and quick, then sat, waiting, still. So she did what she had to do, turned, walked. With each step her chest tightened, her muscles screamed against it, her soul begged her to turn back. But she kept going, until that sound broke her. A low, rising howl, deep, ancient, not mournful, summoning. She spun around. High on the ridge, outlined against the pale sky, stood the gray Alpha, the same one, regal, unblinking, unafraid. Ash bolted toward him, fleet and sure. The Alpha met him without hesitation, nudged his face, licked his ear, then stepped aside. Emily clutched her chest, breath ragged. But it wasn't over. The Alpha turned to her, held her gaze with that same unblinking intensity, and then he bowed, just slightly, head dipped, shoulders low. A gesture not of dominance or threat, but recognition. The wild had seen her, acknowledged her, accepted her. Her knees gave out. She collapsed into the snow, tears spilling down her face, grief and awe, joy and reverence braided into a single, unbearable release. For the first time in years, she didn't feel hollow. She felt whole. She stayed there long after the wolves disappeared into the trees. That night, the porch stayed silent, but the next morning, just before dawn, a single paw print appeared in the snow outside her door. No knock, no sound, just a message. She was never alone again.